Hi, welcome back to Honorable Mention for the third episode. We are talking about Mittsie today. So if you don't know what Mittsie is, it's Stephen Meeks and Gerard Pitts, the ship between them from Dead Poets Society, and I think it's underrated. I've seen people ship Meeks with different people, namely Charlie, but I want to talk about why I think Mittsie works and why I really like it. Um, I am currently sitting in my bedroom at my desk eating spicy ramen noodles, so I'm having the absolute time of my life. It's a Friday afternoon and I have no responsibilities, so I hope that you are also equally comfortable and relaxed. And with that being said, let's get into the episode. Okay, so let me just preface this with the fact that, I was not there on Twitter in 2021 when the Mittsie ship name debate was happening, but I have heard about it and I have opinions on it. So I call it Mittsie. A lot of people call it Mitts, just Meeks and Pitts mashed together. I like Mittsie because it's Meeks and Pitsy, and we've heard people call him Pitsy in the movie, which is adorable. And there were also a lot of other people apparently in that time period, in that fandom space, saying, no, you should only call it Peeks, Peeks, like Pitts and Meeks. And personally, I don't like it. So I'm going to be using Mittsie, but you feel free to call it whatever you like. I don't care. I will say I did have a friend who was on Twitter at the time, so they were sort of relaying to me what happened. And I'm just hoping we don't have any of those arguments in the comments section or anything like that. But it seems like it's been quite a while, so we should be good. Okay, so if you're one of those people who's rewatched DPS a million times, you probably recognize the song I'm using in this episode by now. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you other than go rewatch Dead Poets Society. You fake fan. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. The song is called Let's Have a Party by Wanda Jackson. It's from either the late 50s or the early 60s, if I remember correctly. And the reason I'm using it is because it plays during the quintessential Mittsie moment, the one that everyone uses in their GIFs and their headers and whatever. The scene where they finally get the radio working, this hi-fi system that they've been working on for a while, this project that they built completely from scratch, and they get it to work, and it's playing this song. And so we hear in the back, we get a shot of Pitts climbing down from this ladder on the Welton rooftop, and Meeks in the background is like, we got it, Pitsy, we got it. Which Meeks calling Pitts Pitsy is adorable. Actually, you can't even deny how adorable that is. Anyways, so after that, I think we get okay, if I remember correctly, we get a mini montage of different Welton boys doing different things. And within that is another shot of Meeks and Pitts dancing together on the rooftop with this beautiful view behind them. Another one that people use in I don't know, Tumblr headers and whatever. And they're holding hands and they're dancing to the music that's playing on the radio. And I think it's kind of vulnerable, right? It's kind of a display of vulnerability because you don't they're just dancing without a care in the world. They're kind of let loose, and they're kind of, perceived as by an outsider, they, someone could look at that and be like, oh, you look weird dancing like that, but they just trust each other so much that they don't care how they looking for it. And that's one of my favorite, people will take that and make it one of my absolute favorite concepts in Mittsie fan fiction is they'll take that and they'll just write about it, and they'll be they'll make them sort of self-aware about it. They just really trust the other person, to see them at their most self-expressive and vulnerable. And I feel it speaks to the depth of their friendship / relationship, however you want to interpret it. And to the fact that they haven't held on to quite as many of the toxically masculine ideals of the 1950s as some of the other boys have. So I think it's an amazing scene. 10 out of 10. To me, as someone who would consider myself a nerd, I really actually just love the idea of Meeks and Pits just because they are nerds, and that is such like an underrated like dynamic, I think, to have, is to have two friends who are just like really, really into something, like stupidly into something. Or they're just really, academic weapons. And I feel like they definitely fit into that. And this like radar project, I mean, it's like it gets brought up like three times in the movie, and it's like their child essentially. Like they are collaborating on this project throughout the entire movie, and that's kind of all they're doing, right? And getting dragged into these other situations with the rest of the poets, which I think is really fun. Um, Personally, I'm just a sucker for dynamics that have to do with, people being friends or people's relationship building off of something that they already have in common. And Meeks and Pits certainly do have a lot in common in canon and also in fanon. I have made posts about it. I want to read one post that I made about it like a year and a half ago. Um, Meeks and Pits are so comforting to me. Literally childhood best friends to lovers, platonic, queer platonic, romantic, depending on the headcanon, autism x ADHD, geek x nerd, tall x short. They just get each other so much, and they know each other really well, and their dynamic is really fun to watch. The guys ever, smiley face. So I did make that post a year and a half ago, and I am completely in agreement with it. And it does reflect a lot of the headcanons of the fandom, the section of the fandom that is into their relationship. But yeah, I also do think it's like based in canon. I mean, like they really do get each other so well. They do know each other so well. But if you can believe it, my blog before it had the name Christiany, it was called Mittsie. I saw the opportunity back in April 2022, and for a few months I took it. That was my blog name. I had a profile picture of Meeks. I was like, that was my favorite ship, and it's still one of my favorite ships in the movie. Because gosh, I just really love the I love the friends to lovers dynamic, and I think that I've read some really good fics by some really talented people where they've like sort of talked about their relationship as like children, like them knowing each other since kindergarten, even though we don't really know that in canon, but I mean, it's not denied, and it's safe to assume that they've known each other for a very long time. That all the boys have, but especially them. And I also think a lot of my feels for them come from the fact that, like, to me, like, okay, so you have Ander Perry, which is like, you have these two kids that are like, one of them is, I mean, the entire relationship, I guess you could argue, is kind of a metaphor for like, internalized homophobia and external sorts of, oh my gosh, internalized homophobia, external sources of homophobia, and queerness. And so it's sort of it's like strained in some ways, and obviously Neil kills himself, but also to see, like, for me, like Mittsie is almost like a contrast to that. It's like a queer relationship where like they kind of like already know what's going on, and they sort of they're more comfortable with themselves. And so to have like both types of like queer relationships, like even if it's just my personal headcanon, is like important to me. To see like a queer couple that's like happy, like just two guys that are like sort of happy together and that are really comfortable with each other and know each other really well. And I almost feel like they're just a breath of fresh air within the movie for me personally. Ending excluded. I mean, aside from that, Mittsie is really just like just such a silly, like, fun thing to think about. They have moments that are like really funny. They're always like sitting next to each other in the cave in the Dead Poets Society meetings, and there's one instance where Neil brings in the lamp that he's like, oh, it's the god of the cave, and Meeks looks at it and he's like, is that a lamp? Or no, scratch that. Meeks looks at it and he's like, what is that? And Pitts is like, duh, it's a lamp, Meeks. And there's moments like that that just really make me laugh. Or when Charlie brings in Gloria and Tina, and one of them is talking to Meeks and Pitts, and they're like talking about their radio thing that they're working on, and the girl's like, do you miss having girls at Welton? And they're both like, yeah, just like so in sync. It's really fun to me. So honestly, to sum everything up, I like Mittsie because they're living in their own little world sometimes. They really have their own little existence that is sort of carved out for them, and it's a contrast to much of the angst in the movie. And it's very refreshing for me as a queer person to see them having fun. Also me as like a queer, like neurodivergent person to see them having fun and to see, especially like I personally feel like Pitts is like autistic coded, and a lot of people have said Meeks is like possibly like, you know, has ADHD, or is also autistic coded. It really depends on the person you talk to, and it depends on the head canon. So to be a queer neurodivergent person and to have these queer neurodivergent people who really just get each other and nobody else gets them like they get each other, so good. I love it. So I think this is where I'm going to end the episode, to be honest. It's a little bit less planned out than my last one was. That's just because, like, this ship has been with me, like, second to Ander Perry, it's been with me, like, the longest. Like, I was shipping this, like, months before I found out Jenny was a character. So, I mean, obviously, like, Chris Jenny is, like, one of my favorite ships, but this one I've been actually shipping for longer. So, um, yeah, so they are my faves. I don't think I have to say that again because I've said it so many times. Yeah, so like let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of this episode's format, I guess. Um and like I don't know, feel free to send me asks, feel free to add comments. I have a bunch of mutuals who are into mittsie as well, and every time someone posts about it, it's just like the most fun thing ever to reblog it and add my little tags. So yeah. See you in the next episode. Goodbye.